Hi, good evening. My name is Assyrian. I've been a member of this association for the past 40 years. May not look a day over 20, but I've aged a little bit. Last 9 years, I've actually been living in Sacramento, so I haven't been a part of these commemorations and the festivities of this organization. But rest assured, when the president and vice president asked me to come out and commemorate and celebrate this day, it was, of course, with no ado that I decided that this was the place I wanted to be. So with that, we will be translating this presentation in both languages. I will try to limit the exact direct translation so that we don't keep you here and you're not all understanding this twice. I understand you all speak English. So without further ado, we wanted to talk about this program today. So we'll have to take a few breaks as the planes go overhead, but we wanted to celebrate, and the theme of today's celebration is that we are celebrating our fallen and we're empowering the future of our youth. And how do we do that? Typically, as Assyrians, we do that with a somber occasion. And make no mistakes about it, this is a very somber occasion. But for every Assyrian and every Armenian and every Greek that is sitting before us today, you represent the 10,000s of your ancestors that were fallen to the sword of enemies and enemy combatants. So to that, our voices are not just one full, they are 10,000 full. So I commemorate you, and you have that responsibility to carry that legacy forward. So with that, scouts are ready. I will call up the Assyrian scouts, and when they do step up, we're going to ask them to recite the American Pledge of Allegiance, and then to also recite the Assyrian Pledge of Allegiance, or Salmat Shubachan, for you all to hear. And Salmat Shubachan is the translation is the image of our praise. So we'll ask the Baduba to come up now.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your right hand over your heart and recite our nation's pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Salmat Shubachan, Sorta Slavatan, Rushma Hayutan, Akbet Hurutan, Aktan Habitan, in Roman Harutan, Imyana Imaraya Hananadan, Min Kulagani, Min Kularuhi, Mahban Pratisha, Dahman Kuditan, Nadibin Haya, Hatan Lashaya, Hashan Hayutan, Hashan Kulishan, Kuditan Rachta, La Adam Shubachtan,
to now ask, if you noticed, we have some members of the clergy here with us. We're fortunate enough to have that. And so I'm going to ask each of them singly to come up and commemorate a prayer for the fallen. So in Basmala from Penta, good Bakran, we got it got to do. Well, there's unity for you.
بقروخ قمت الشمال المقام شارك سلطان even Kashik Yorks Midrash what's Maryam 8 months Alturai. Blessings. I am Father George Midrash from the Assyrian Church of the East, St. Mary's Parish in Tarzan.
Ani when Kuram Biscopa, the Nasistuma, it's at the Mamcha of Marshal Luther or Bishop at the Nasistuma, Marshal Luther Church, the Ancient Church of the East.
أنا ابن طاشا أشر الخوري من أمرة مرقول الشليخة Orange County. My name is Father Asher Al-Khoury from St. Paul Church, Assyrian Church of the East in Orange County.
I'm Gashash Will Dahlia, right at Ramat Allah in Los Angeles. My name is Pastor Samuel Italier, pastor of the First Assyrian Assembly of God Church in LA.
أنا ابن يوناتان نازني رايد إيتد فرساي جمديت رسيدة وعلى خير جمديت إيرفاين. My name is Pastor Jonathan Azana, the lead pastor of the Persian Christian Church based in San Fernando Valley in South Orange County. عود بيد صليوة قم بارقلا من موته وخراوة وبقيمته قول إلا نخية ونخامة بيه بربولة وخ من عمقد رخم وبطلابة وخ وهدخة بسلوطها بمارة وخ شمية مارن وآلهن سلوطة مقروة لزبونوتا من جيبة سهدة أمتنا طريطة آني تبخرن دمي زكايا علنيشة خيروتة أمتنا طريطة تمشوني لهم من جاون ويقول لهم فغري القطلة لرخمة وهدامي بشنو قطقطة بيد بيشة وخرمة يا ماري قابل فربلتن وديك وديوم تخاري طمومي وخ فاخل يا مريا جناهي وخطياتي آني دويديلن برزايا لبرزايا بيديتي انطلديتا طشوة يمجليا بيشي خلول لكي وقريدي كل باصروياتي بيشي خزيت للكت لمومة عم كل آني بياشنا قرية العي مشتوطة روخليتا يقورشلم الليتا وطامة زمري بتشبختا بباتا بسختا قم ترونس خقرخ أدية وبكل دانا والعالمين آمين.
He who saved us by his cross from the corruption of death, and by his resurrection, he promised us everlasting life. By the power of prayers, we are asking of your compassion, O Lord, to hear the prayers that our sinful nature, which we are offering on behalf of all of our Assyrian martyrs, whom they shed their righteous blood for the freedom of their nation, on behalf of all those who departed from us and gave their bodies as sacrifice, and we were slaughtered by the enemy of peace.
O Lord, accept our pleading on behalf of all those whom are commemorating today. Forgive, O Lord, all of their offenses, those that are known and unknown, that were committed willingly and unwillingly, that we were acknowledged and not acknowledged, that they might be cleansed and found without blemish, so they are worthy to stand in your presence and be mingled among all those who are invited to your spiritual supper in Jerusalem the above.
أراناتهم بغسايا بدو لختي ببغلخة جو هزور دي أختيخ وبطلاب وق منوخ عتن بخبوخ شميانايا ودي هزوروخ ويا أمديا لخ ملت ديا نيجي إلى أقوم جات ده الدنيا ما سنجوات كانن بدنارن شمت مشيخة صابية وبيدات دي وبضاي وق عتن هم شخيلو وتخمديا عبد بجد أهوال أدخل مبيونة إن هرات وديو أخنا لخ إيبا وبلشان جانن همزوم وق عما دوي لقد عتن من هنيبت أمانيبت وهزدانا ديش من ليل ميسا غالب ألديا بس جانن وملتن صابية وبيدات دي وبابا بشمت مشيخة آمين.
Please close your eyes and bow your heads as we pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the person of Jesus Christ who died upon the cross and who provided us with the eternal salvation. Lord, we humble ourselves, we humble our hearts, we humble all of our thoughts into your presence, Lord. We ask that just as in the first century church, as the apostles laid down their lives and they advanced the kingdom that was in heaven onto earth and advanced the cause of the gospel, Father, remember those who have fallen. Though many of their names may not have been written, many of their names may not be known to us, Lord, but we remember them tonight. Father, we pray that we will learn from the past and that we will empower the future, the young men and women that will come and take their place in the history that is about to be written. So, Father, we ask that you will bestow upon us the protection of your angels as our nation is scattered around the world, but our hearts are united as one. Lord, we humble ourselves in your presence, knowing that once we come into your presence, there is eternal protection, that there will be your blessing upon your people. So tonight, Lord, we honor you. We praise you. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray. And the people of God say, amen.
Honoring our martyrs, Assyria worldwide stands united today. Moron Khayatur! Khayatur!
Before I bring up the next speaker, this is the Vice President of the Association. Just wanted to, and everybody here probably knows the story, but for our fellow guests, our Assyrians, our Greeks, Armenian, and American guests here. So, anyone wonder why August 7th was chosen? So August 7th was one of the horrific days of the Semeli massacre in 1933. Now there have been many massacres committed on this very, very small population of Assyrians, and it seems like they just won't quit, and we won't quit either. So we're still here. So in 30 days, 5,000 to about 6,000, of course, there was no real record keeping for that time, but 5,000 to 6,000 of my brothers and my family members were slaughtered. Because of that, the Assyrian Universal Alliance deemed that day the day that we were to commemorate. Now, there have been many days. Our Armenian brothers and sisters commemorate April 24th, and we commemorate and celebrate that day with them and honor their fallen, and we commemorate this day. I'm going to ask the Vice President, John Curiel, to come up, and he's going to make a few statements as well.
I just want to say first, when I see so many Assyrians together, this is awesome. So, Chebu, best me going on behalf of the Assyrian American Association of Southern California and Seifu Center, I want to welcome you all to the Remember the Fallen, Empower the Future, commemorating the 102nd anniversary of the Assyrian genocide. I'd like to welcome our invited guests, our esteemed clergy, our elected officials, and all of you, and say thank you for joining us on this solemn occasion and remembering those that have perished. For decades, our communities have set aside this day to pay tribute to those who gave their all for a belief that they stood for. The acts of honor, courage, and selflessness resonate amongst these individuals in which we're honoring today. I've had the distinct honor and privilege of serving as the chairman of this committee for the past 2 years, an event that I hold near and dear to my heart. Last year, we gathered on these grounds to celebrate and rally for Nineveh. We rallied for the 101st anniversary of the Assyrian genocide, and we lent our voices to those that are still voiceless. Today, we gather to reiterate to those deniers that we are loud, we are strong, and we are united today more than ever in our fight for recognition. This year's theme continues the premise of honoring, remembering, and empowering. Remember the fallen, for they have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Yet let us empower ourselves and the generations behind us to continue the struggle and the persistence. We, together, the descendants of our brave soul ancestors, have the ability and the voice to lead the charge for change. It is our duty, born as Assyrians, Armenians, and Greeks, embodied in us, as the original sin was, to carry this responsibility and obligation to fill the hollowness of silence with not just words, but with action. We each owe a debt of gratitude to the fallen victims that we can never fully repay. However, we can honor their sacrifice, and we must. Honoring it by carrying their memories, honoring them within our respective communities, and honoring them in our service. During this night's commemoration, remember the sacrifices each of our communities have lost. As Assyrians, the loss of General Aga Padros, Umar Binyamin Shimon, Yusuf, Hubert, and Yuchenna are felt every day. I will leave you with this. Remember that we only thrive as a nation by producing future leaders to carry the torch of freedom. We do so by not just parading a flag or attending a memorial or pausing in silence, but by practicing the sentiments through our actions that we will do today on a daily basis. Let's all keep a promise together. Let's stand united and make this promise right now. I'd like for you to repeat these words that I just said. I promise to never stop fighting. I promise to make my voice heard. I promise to remember the fallen. I promise to empower the future. Thank you. Teyato.
So the next person I'd like to invite up to the stage is Michael Isahani. He is the board member of the Assyrian Democratic Movement.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of ADM, I would like to thank Assyrian American Association for this opportunity. An ardor to our solemn martyrs. The 7th of August is a day of grave importance for us Assyrian people, also known as Chaldeans or Syriacs, and represents Martyrs' Day, Permit Simel in Assyrian. This was the first of many massacres committed by the Iraqi government during the systematic targeting of Assyrians from northern Iraq during the month of August in 1933. The term is used to describe not only the massacre of Simel, but also the killing spree that continued among 63 Assyrian villages in the Dohuk, northern Iraq, and Mosul districts, that led to the deaths of thousands of innocent lives. Assyrians at the time were emerging from one of the darkest periods of their history, the Assyrian, Armenian, and Greek Pontian genocide at the end of World War I. An estimated 2/3 of the Assyrian population was massacred by the Ottoman Turks and Kurds. It's an unfortunate and lingering reminder of the atrocities that we've suffered and still do in the present day. During 1985 in Baghdad, the martyrdom of Hubert, Yusuf, and Yuchenna at the hands of the then Ba'athist regime can trace a direct line to the formation of our nationalistic movement that became known as the Assyrian Democratic Movement, also known as ZOA, which has been fighting back in many fronts and still shows absolutely no sign of abating. Today, while it may outwardly appear that Mosul has been liberated, our people still suffer tremendously both in Iraq and in Syria. where ISIS has maintained its grip for years. The Assyrians that have not made an exit from our homelands have been exterminated by ISIS, or simply been downsized by the Iraqi government in central Iraq, and also systematically throughout history. But most recently, by the Kurds in the northern region of Iraq, also known as Kurdistan Regional Government, both by the means of Arabization and Kurdification, as well as imposition, internal displacement, mass migration, and deportation. Between the years of 2014 and 2017, ISIS destroyed some of our most precious historical landmarks and treasures in our homeland, which date back to the Assyrian Empire, pointing to our existence as the indigenous people of Mesopotamia. These were priceless relics, and their loss, while not as terrible as the loss of lives, nonetheless still resonate not just against the Assyrians, but against the history as humanity as a whole. As a nation, it's important to us to talk about where we've been in order to chart where we're going. There's a direct line that can be traced from the tragedies of a century ago for today that eradicated 750,000 Assyrians, at the cruelty of Ottoman Turkey, as well as the systematic exodus of our people from other countries in the Middle East. We, in the Assyrian Democratic Movement, honor our heroes in remembrance for the suffering they endured to obtain freedom, welfare, and progress. May we never forget that if we had no past, we certainly can lay claim to any future. Glory to our martyrs. Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce one of our first elected officials who's among us, and I thank you for their patience. I know we're running few minutes behind. Scott Schmierelson has been part of education community for more than 35 years. He serves as a board member for AAA-SC, LA Unified School District. I'd ask the Honorable Schmierelson to come up stage.
This is an honor because the school board member usually goes last. So I'm quite surprised. It is an honor for me to be here again. I was here last year. Last year you had it in the middle of the day, if you remember. It was real hot and real sunny, so this is the perfect time for us to be able to calmly listen to what's happening. Thank you again for inviting me to speak. Although we are at the start of a new school year and looking forward to new opportunities and experiences, we're here to commemorate the 102nd anniversary of the genocide against the Assyrians, Armenians, and Greeks. We are here to remember the fallen and empower the future. We empower the future through education and by bringing communities together. People from all around the world have made Los Angeles their home for several reasons. And Los Angeles Unified School District provides an education to every student that comes to the schoolhouse door, no matter how rich, no matter how poor. We know students want to learn about themselves and about their history, but sometimes it's difficult to teach real history. I am proud to have partnered with some of the organizations here today to provide professional development for our LAUSD teachers on how to teach young people about genocide. For example, Local District Northeast and Northwest, for which I am the board member, has partnered with social science teachers for a professional development that we had at Mount Gleason Middle School about the genocide. It's difficult, but it's too important not to know. I look forward to working with the Assyrian American Association to continue to raise awareness about genocide 102 years ago and to reflect on the history and the implications for today and how to build with all of you a better future. As your partner on the school board, we will make sure that the important history is not overlooked. We will make sure to remember the fallen and empower the future. I need you to know that I have been working with Assemblyman Assyrian to make sure that the Armenian genocide is included in the new social studies books, in the English language literature books. It must be included. If it's not included, people don't know, people forget. I want you to know that I am working, okay, thank you. I am also working on something that you may not know, and it's called ethnic studies. And ethnic studies is to make students in LAUSD aware about all the different groups. We are heavily Hispanic in Los Angeles, but there are other groups too whose story must be told. I want this ethnic study, and it's on its way. It's almost ready to go. I want all students to have to learn about all cultures, not just their own, all cultures. If you don't learn about the past, you will regret it because future events can happen again. I am your partner. I will make sure that your history is understood and known by all of our students in Los Angeles. Thank you very much.
That's why we had an educator go first. So it's with great pleasure that I ask Ioannis Fidanakis, who is the Executive Director of the American Hellenic Council, to come up on stage, please.
Good evening. And first I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the Assyrian American Association of Southern California and to the SAFO Center for organizing this event. Honored guests, clergy, elected officials, fellow community leaders, my name is Ioannis Fidanakis, and on behalf of the American Hellenic Council, I am proud to stand here this evening in remembrance of all the innocent victims of SAFO and the 1933 massacres. Two tragic events in human history, which were both failed attempts at the systematic extermination of the Assyrian people. For me, it is an honor to be here this evening participating in this year's Assyrian Martyrs Day as a representative of the Greek American community, because I myself am a direct descendant of survivors of the Ottoman Greek genocide from the region of Eastern Thrace, an often forgotten region which was affected by the Young Turks' policy of systematic extermination against the empire's indigenous Assyrian, Armenian, and Greek inhabitants. Between 1914 and 1923, over 3.5 million Assyrians, Armenians, and Greeks were murdered at the hands of two consecutive Turkish governments, 520 of which came from my ancestral village. Today, we honor their memory by joining together all three communities to tell the world they failed. The Young Turks failed. The Kemalists failed. The Ba'athist and Iraq government failed. And today, those who attempt to follow in their footsteps with their extremist ideologies will also fail. If there's one thing I can leave you today, this evening, is I wish to leave you with a sense of brotherhood. Together, Assyrians, Greeks, and Armenians can achieve not just the recognition of SAFO, but also many, many other things, like defending the historical archaeological sites of ancient Assyrian, Armenian, and Hellenistic cultures throughout the region, ending the illegal Turkish occupation of Cyprus, and perhaps even one day, a free Assyria. Thank you.
California State Senator Anthony Portantino regrettably could not be with us today, but he has sent his staff member to read to us a message from the senator. I would ask Arda Chakayan to please come up on stage. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to read a letter from the senator. Dear friends, thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts with you this evening. I regret being unable to be with you in person. Why do we recognize and commemorate genocides? because it is a horrendous violation of human rights? Or is it the appropriate thing to do? Is it because we have commingled with our Assyrian, Armenian, and Greek friends and have learned to appreciate their leadership, business, and educational contributions as descendants and survivors of the genocide? Or to share the historic horrors with our neighbors so that Washington takes note and Turkey takes responsibility? Certainly to all of the above. But we must also remember that with each statement we make, there is a tragic human story that needs to be remembered. As we commemorate the 102nd anniversary of the genocide against Assyrians, Armenians, and Greeks, I must stress the importance of always remembering and learning from the past while celebrating the resiliency of the three communities who overcame horrible atrocities and proved daily that Turkey failed in its attempt to annihilate them. There is nothing I can say that will take away the pain or erase the memories of atrocities that occurred in the past. However, knowledge is power. I will support the education of genocides for all to learn, understand, and remember. Sincerely, Senator Anthony Portantino. I have a certificate that I would like to present to the organizers on behalf of Senator Portantino. President Ramon Tosh, will you please join me at the podium?
This time I'd like to bring up Nora Hovaspian, who is the Armenian National Committee of America Western Region Board of Director, or Chair of the Board of Directors. Nora?
Good evening, honored clergy, distinguished guests, and fellow survivors of genocide. On occasions like this, when we gather to remember the victims from 100 years ago, and to remind the world that the lessons of history must be learned so they are not repeated, words like never again ring hollow. France, Great Britain, and Russia threatened in 1915 to hold Turkey responsible. A Turkish military tribunal issued convictions and death sentences in 1919, and the Treaty of Sèvres called for Turkish accountability in 1920. Still, over 3 million Assyrians, Greeks, and Armenians were slaughtered with impunity as the civilized world watched. During World War II, the Nazi regime slaughtered 6 million Jews and other minorities. Though Hitler's genocidal plans were well known long before the war, no one stopped him. The 1948 United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide laid a framework to stop future genocides. The intent was noble, but geopolitical interests thwarted accountability for later genocides in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia, and Darfur. Last year, the United States Congress and the European Parliament declared that atrocities committed by ISIS constitute genocide against Christians and Yazidis. Yet, the same geopolitical considerations that failed to hold Turkey accountable 100 years ago continue to allow Turkey to escape accountability for its brazen support of ISIS as it commits a new genocide. Last week, 3 years after the ISIS attack on the Yazidis, the UN Human Rights Commission on Inquiry on Syria issued a dire warning that the genocide against Yazidis is ongoing and remains largely unaddressed, despite international obligations to prevent and punish the crime. Although the Commission had interviewed thousands of witnesses and issued numerous reports documenting this ongoing crime against humanity, Commissioner Carla Del Ponte, a veteran war crimes investigator, recently resigned, because she felt the commission lacked political support and was being used as an alibi for inaction. We thought the international community had learned something in Rwanda, but no, they have not learned anything, she said in utter frustration, pointing out that without a special tribunal to prosecute the perpetrators, the commission's reports would remain without consequences. As she told the BBC, nothing happens, only words, words, and more words. And she's right. Even last year, when Secretary of State John Kerry finally agreed that the atrocities being committed by ISIS against Yazidis and Christians in the Middle East constituted genocide, and that the perpetrators will be held accountable, State Department officials were quick to label his declaration as a symbolic gesture that would not impact U.S. policy. So the question then becomes, why hasn't the reminder of the first genocide prevented it from ever happening again? And the answer is simple. Crime is best deterred by punishment. But when the world refuses to punish the perpetrator and adds further insult to injury by continuously rewarding an unrepentant Turkey, genocidal crimes continue undeterred. Turkey's President Erdogan has declared himself the new caliph. He openly praises Hitler as an exemplary world leader, just as Hitler openly praised Atatürk. He uses neo-Ottoman rhetoric to advance the same pan-Turkic agenda that the Young Turks pursued a century ago. He imprisons his political opponents and destroys the last remnants of democracy in his country, and the world watches in silence. A crime unpunished is a crime condoned, goes the wise saying. And so today, more than 100 years since the genocide, as our survivors and descendants were dispersed from our ancient homeland to rise up in diasporan communities like this one worldwide, we still stand, we still demand accountability. We have felt it on our own skin, whether that trauma was passed down to us by our orphaned grandmothers, or whether our families and compatriots continue today to suffer persecution and genocide in the Middle East. But we are here not just to remember. We are here to reclaim justice. We will not be silenced by a pro-Turkish lobby which has paid millions of dollars per year to influence U.S. policy, imposing a gag rule on American principles of justice and buying the world's inaction. We will not be silenced by those who value Turkey as a so-called strategic ally, untouchable despite its crimes. We will not be silenced by a Turkish dictator who enjoys the favor and hospitality of our U.S. government while he dares to order his thugs to attack peaceful protesters on American soil. We will not be silenced by those like the Americana brand in Glendale, who perpetuate genocide denial by blocking ads for films such as the upcoming Architects of Denial as being quote-unquote too political. In our unity, we stand strong against our common enemies. We stand in solidarity with you, not as victims, but as survivors and descendants of ancient peoples who have withstood centuries of persecution and attempts to annihilate us. As an ancient Navajo proverb proclaims, they tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. Over 100 years later, those remain firmly planted and continue to thrive. We thank the Assyrian American community for standing with us in our ongoing march for justice, and we in the Armenian American community, and particularly the ANCA Western region, whose leadership joins you today, as we remember the hundreds of thousands of Assyrians, Greeks, and Armenians, and other victims of genocide. And we stand shoulder to shoulder with you to reclaim justice for us all. Thank you.
So with no further ado, we're going to take a few of the speakers a little out of order, but it is my distinct pleasure to welcome the Honorable Eric Garcetti to the stage. He serves as the 42nd mayor of your great city and my great city, and I have to tell you, I'm a big fan. These are the elected officials I work for in Sacramento.
Thank you, Christina, and a very good evening to everybody. A good evening to a city of angels as the sun sets today, as we feel the warmth of this city around us, as we feel on our right and our left and in front of us and behind us the strength of this community. A community I'm so proud to represent here in Los Angeles. I just came from the Memorial Coliseum, a venue that was built to remember the victims in Los Angeles of World War I. Soldiers who had fought in the First World War. We did not know at the time there would be a second one. It was only called the Great War. And so Memorial Coliseum was built for them. We were welcoming the Police and Fire World Games in a place where the 1932 Olympics were held, the 1984 Olympics were held, and where the 2028 Olympics, I should say, are also coming back. But you can't but help feel a little bit of history. That in the years that that place has been there, what we've seen and what we've lost. We are here tonight as the living, by definition. Those of us, full of the life that we breathe and the testimony to those who would have kept us away from here. Nora's eloquent words resonate with me so much because I was raised here in the San Fernando Valley with the word genocide heavy in my family too. I'm your average Mexican-American, Jewish-Italian politician, but joking aside, my father's side from Mexico, I'm here because my great-grandmother fled war when her husband, my great-grandfather, was killed in the Mexican Revolution. My mother's family was Jewish. They fled the massacres in the Russian Empire in the early part of the 20th century and found a life here in Los Angeles. They were the brave ones. Like you, I have too many family members to name or to even know that were lost under the banner of supremacy, of one group, one race, one nationality who would seek to snuff out who we are. The Assyrian community is perhaps one of the very oldest in the world. The symbol right here is one of the most ancient, not just for the Assyrian community, but for the human family. It's where one of the great places where civilization first started, where we came off of the chaos that preceded, or the farms, or the things that didn't allow us to begin to find culture and language, to build cities. Yes, and empires came and went, and the Assyrian people became one of the earliest Christian, if not the earliest Christian communities. I know the Armenians and the Syrians might fight it out. Let's say it's a tie tonight. Okay. But in that moment, in accepting what God moved this community to believe in and to be, the contribution not just to the region in the Middle East that the Syrians made, but to the world was made manifest. I think for all of us, these moments, as Nora said, is so right. We don't want more words. But as Councilmember Paul Kaporian, who we are so proud has led the first Armenian American on the City Council, the words of standing up against the genocide every single year on our City Council, we do have to answer words with words sometimes. Because the lies that are put out must be answered with truth. Every single time a lie, that wasn't a genocide, we have to say, yes, it was. Or if that didn't happen, we say, yes, it did. We all know Elie Wiesel, who once said, the second death is to forget those that have died. We will not allow that to happen. We will not allow them to be killed twice. In 1914 in Van, when the massacres started of the Assyrians, part of the Ottoman supremacist philosophy, part of the world politics, sound familiar, that they were swept up in between Germany and Russia going at each other, the victims weren't just an ethnic group. They were human beings with families and stories like us. People who smiled at their children in the mornings, who played with their grandchildren, whose life was full of expressing music, theater, reading literature, cooking a good meal. These were human lives and human stories that they attempted to snuff out. And when we saw the massacres continue, I think in Assyrian you call it the Sefer, the sword that came. It moved from village to village. Diyarbakir, Harput. And then of course, what we mark happened less than 20 years later, when the British turned their eyes the other direction, because geopolitics meant to support the new Iraqi government and to allow killings of an entire people who had surrendered, children thrown up on the bayonets of rifles, unspeakable sexual assaults on the women, pregnant women being murdered, men who had laid down their arms and surrendered, killed. How can we lose this chapter? How can we let it not be told? How can we not speak words? And we think that we would come here only to write history, to go backwards and to claim that that way that that page is written must be turned. And yet we find ourselves here tonight not just marking history, we see people making history again. And we are called to either answer that or not. To say to our government in any administration that if you do nothing, that blood is on our collective hands. That right now, will we erase the memory of what the Middle East is, a cradle of so many civilizations? There are countries now where there's no longer any Jews in the Middle East, where they lived for millennia. Now we risk their countries having no Christians, where Christianity is from. When will this end? Will we stand up and do something and not just speak? Well, I'm proud in this city of angels, we don't have to parse words. We don't have to play politics. We don't have to find nice ways to say it. We don't have to say things symbolically. We can tonight call on the world to act. In the last concentration of Assyrians in their homelands, they are being driven out and killed as we speak. If we believe in human rights here, we have to believe in human rights there. And so to the Assyrian American Association of Southern California, when we come together for Martyrs' Day, let us come the next time not because there are any new martyrs being made, but because we are still trying to fix the old history. But in this moment, when we remember those who have come before me, the ancestors who bravely fought, many of them not making it themselves, but allowing it for you to be here, my family members who moved so that I could be here, in this place halfway around the world, let us truly make the city of angels mean something. And let us be the angels that save even one life, if not 100, if not 1,000. And let us stand up here, one last thing, to our own government, who would shut the doors of welcoming refugees. I don't care what your politics are, that is un-American. And here in the city of Los Angeles, we will say, yes, our doors are open, yes, this is a city of refuge. And we call on our government to do something to stop the killing. Thank you very much.
So now I will ask Wanya Benyamin to come up. He was the saxophonist who was entertaining you with the music before the program started. He will be playing a song today that has roots in the early 20th century from a very early Assyrian artist named Rasa. The name of the song is My Dear Assyrian Warrior. جوان قصوغل آتورايا وانيا إن بسمالوخ Al-Khas was a renowned Assyrian writer and poet whose masterpiece, The Tragedy of Bedri, eloquently conveys the agony of a 12-year-old daughter and her family fleeing the ancestral region of Urmia in present-day northwestern Iran as part of a mass exodus during the 1915 genocide. Jean also recounts a song called Cry for a Nation that our people could solemnly sing during the mass exodus where so many did not survive due to disease, starvation, and famine. To recite excerpts from each of those in the Assyrian language, I ask that the chair of the AAA-SC's Arts and Literature Committee, Rabbi Aturina Agha Khan, to come up to the stage, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. قتخة أمي أبرام سهدو كل بعض ماشم قمادية خطيو كجور من أمتن كد بسلابي بقطالة براقنا من أرمي جان آنخاش بتراجية بدري بگراش لخصورتا من قاهيون خصوانو بدري خبرات لبارتي سرشنه من أباهو براقنا او دايا او شمون او خونا او ليا أني قالي يدودي يلتعتر تيمة بجاني وليخد كل روبات القردمانا خخم ودال بريام وان كل يباني مظلوميات الجخشت ليلة تاموس بخوات وجوابيات أباه أني بالوهازة ببوبيت القلبي بهرهم جنسي صلاتي ببربات الدنيا إشتاقوا محمد يسور المسجد أرخى يرتا أمتنت كلاشي ريخت كم خقيدة بخيد يال السورة تنخت مرانة قبل تجي ودربانة يتك أباه اليالة ويالة الأباه كل آخوت وخربش كرهونه وبساقل شمية بيقو لجغاشه داشو يوا پاتو بخدا كرتا عبورتا جبتا کتام المرزد أرخم يخشكي براما بدري برتي سرشنه اقدا قيم تدكيفا قزود من الأيولة برناشوتة برخشة ولكلايا خويتا بنيان بأربانه هرتيم أحمل أبشواق المرزانه ساوي سويات قطير مرانياته صبيعي هستانياته خلو من دي بيتويتا مخلطة بنيان شوشي كل أعمل أبرخشوا لديت تلقيكا لديت تلقيما كل يوم أبرخشوا كل ليلة أبرخشوا جاهي جد بيباروا جد سميت بيباروا جاهي دل بيباروا كل خطايان أبرخشوا كل أودال بخشوا لخم هديانة بخشوا لخاسندانة بخشوا لجور سورة بخشوا لدام الصلاة بخشوا لتخمنت البيشاني لتخمنت الموتاني خلي بسبيق بخشوا لخيار ديجة بخشوا لجولة لصولة بخشوا لخنيش السكرات لايون لقامة بخشوا من كل ميتة لقويرة من كل تشويق لمطيرة من كل بيشة ألي مقطيرة من كل من دي بيشة خطيرة اشماية والبت ميرا شكلي زي بريمني زي رو زي دارده وداهم أهل زيتا أهل غشتا أهل شميتا برخشوا بفراخوا كفيني لقشكتا دانت مليت خط برده لديتك إيدا الغنيان الشويكي لا تركت دانا برخشوا سيد بمياجة فمدينا قمكليت الصابي لكلايا برخشوا قلقلت الريشي وما بيختت خاصة ومن يكتب أكله شمشوما باب أبرا كسيت البخارا جل ماهود ريشايا سولد جلد ديمانا من جيبه خردوي و أكله بطاعت القريبة ريشي كليا كاب الصدر بخشوا لا تردم بخشوا لا تخمنت بخشوا لبا بيزالة قفركت الفغرة لا كلي أني جنجاري كلي أني زحمتي كلي أني قيباني نوسي قابولي لبا من أنايوتا بود خاطرت فغرة سبب كل خاتم سواكي يطيبا إن شمون قابل و قاعش و قريا قوسي ومرت زينب إجها بزاقة فغرناي لباتي سبب كل خاتم سواكي يطيبا إن شمون قابل و قاعش و قريا قوسي ومرت زينب إجها بزاقة فغرناي لباتي لما قبل خاطرت خيوتي خديتي أني سحب المرتراي بساق وهاي قلتها لا لما برشاقت بيشي وبسبب بأطربات القاطر داهدوني حبيبة أسيري قطعي ببريشي بود خاطرت خاصة باللخمة لا أني برخشوا بيغداورخا قديري وبيغداورخا برخشوا كخاميت الإيتوت الضايبه أني لما بياني برخشا كانت بترايبة كانت خرز بيبة إيدات الدشت روخات السهل الجنات الخيل لابويا مني أبي ماردوتا بكلايا بخايا بشبيوتا بخيارا بخزايا أخشيدانة ببيامة بكماتا والمطايا اليهلة كل بقدار وخبرخ شبا كخاميتت إيش لهويا خانمونا آترايا كخاميتت إيش لهويا خانمونا آترايا بيبي خاميتت إيتوت الضايبة وبيبي نبارت بيشاني برخشا يختاما خا زمرت اتنقد ايضا تدان دراك اكزامري بالا خامدين سوانيات الماشي قران اكزامري بالا اخيرا تسورخ بساوني قفن اكزامري بالا انا خبرانت اعبتني انا خمشخلة كليبي هم زمان خبرانت ده زمرتا اويغ ناكوش زنگري بلتياتا اوين قيل ونقيش اللوخة لبنوريانا لا من شيخون سهلا ولا من شيخون اواهم والدفق بخاطر ينفخ وليتت ملتن آغالار بنونید ملت سيرتا مارير ديانا تيمون زمرخ زمرتد ملت وليتا يدوي خديانا كد يمات مكوخنا ببخاينا هاور كسلوخون أمان قطوخون يمدليلا قالب بنوني آروكي دبخيمون قاتي هلون خبرال قريباي بربزي خجامياتي پشت یخسر بلونی قدیله بناتی لبله هاور کسلوخون امان قطوخون فمارت و پرشت یما من یاله با پلید لیله فمارت و پرشت یما من یاله با پلید لیله واتن سوگر قدر تا المیدان دمه ماران ایکله رقم شبتا سترب قرتا خاصن کرتا هاور کسلوخون aman qatoğun. Ginili yumat şile şumşa şabira mal ulmi sara. Ginili yumat şile şumşa şabira mal ulmi sara. Cibilon ayve çimxişgane bnapira kumurun mara. Piştan aciz, iki azar, mani khazar. Havar kistoğun, aman qatoğun. Guz mur bulbul surte göverdi lazdimin mota. گوز مور بلبل سرده گورده لازم من موتا اخن ایوان کلی حاضر اغمرده لخشولن صوتا اتلن هیبی Itlan hiwi ket goeie dip santal kiwi. Itlan hiwi ket goeie dip santal kiwi. Howard Christofon, Aman Katofon. After Massimi. Thank you.
Agad Babwan Red, Mary Isaac Aile, President Tegbirantin, Huyade Bitsobe, Shotaputit, Los Angeles Perdelacha. I will ask Mary Isaac, who's the Assyrian Students Association of Los Angeles, President of the Assyrian Students Association, to come up.
Shamanochon. Hello. On behalf of the Assyrian Student Association of Los Angeles, I would like to thank you all for being here. This is a day when we remember our martyrs, those who gave their lives for their people and for their beliefs. However, I don't think that definition does our martyrs justice for the incredible sacrifice that they made for our nation. Can you think of the last time you sacrificed something for someone? It's difficult to imagine ever doing what our martyrs did, but in my reflection and my remembrance of their love for the thing greater than themselves, I am inspired deeply. That selflessness that they exhibited, that love for Christ and the Assyrian identity that they treasured, that is ultimately why I'm living and standing with you here today. With all the sacrifice endured by the Assyrian nation, the genocides and persecutions that drove us into a diaspora, it's only imperative for all of us to stay informed and engaged. We cannot lose to apathy or indifference, as tempting as it may be sometimes. Fear and uncertainty have clouded the minds of many in our very own community, and it's only paralyzed us from moving on from our unfortunate history. Yet it is precisely at a time like this that we can no longer afford to hesitate in our endeavors to build up our voice and vision as a strong community. We've proven to the world that we will not surrender. Throughout everything, we have survived. With the awareness and understanding of our tumultuous history comes the responsibility for this generation and the next to rise above the darkness and continue the fight with greater resilience and optimism than ever before. We will not let our martyrs die in vain. Luckily, we are the generation of movers and shakers, of doers and optimists. These days, I find myself constantly surprised at what people are capable of achieving. So why should you and I and our community be any different? Given our vast history of overcoming and achievements, we are just as capable, if not even more, than everyone else. So my peers and I started the Assyrian Student Association to bring together the younger generation of students and working professionals to remind them this, that we are a proud and powerful community only when we are united. As our membership grows, I am gratified to see so many interested in our ultimate cause. In just 1 year, we've hosted a number of events, bringing in new faces and friends alike. We also had the honor of being invited to march alongside our Armenian and Greek brothers and sisters on April 24th in the March for Justice. However, our fight does not end with simply coming to these events. A commitment to a better future for the Assyrian nation requires dedication and passion every single day of our lives. I'm here to simply encourage you all to stand up for this community. Sefo 1915, the Semele Massacre of 1933, Chabur 2015. These are just some of the significant dates of our Assyrian history to remind us of our purpose. So let us wake up every day, proud of who we are, and remember the sacrifice it took to get us here. Let's take that gift of life and the responsibility that came with it to go the extra mile whenever we can, meaning this. Take a minute to be politically engaged and informed, and talk to your representatives. After all, they're right here, and they're willing to listen to you. Furthermore, never be shy to take every opportunity to identify yourself and properly educate those who mistake your identity and your history. Be the vessel in informing the world of what our community is facing today. Finally, Never stop encouraging support for this community and advocating for your own. Because the truth is, if we're not fighting for us, then no one is fighting for us. Thank you.
It's my distinct honor now to present to you, to bring on stage your Adrian Nazarian, who is a California State Assembly member. He is Armenian by descent, so we almost are brothers and sisters in kin. He has been elected since November 2012. I had the distinct pleasure of actually meeting Assembly Member Nazarian at the Assyrian New Year's, and I remember that he made a promise to me when the gas tax passed, he would do chikeh. He would do Assyrian dancing. This isn't the time and place, but it's coming. Would you please, a round of applause.
Thank you. And first and foremost, thank you for having me here on this solemn occasion and the remembrance. Second of all, thanks to all of you for keeping the memory alive. I was so touched and impressed by what Mary was saying in her points, talking points. It's wonderful having you in the office, first of all. Also, it's difficult to comprehend injustice of this magnitude and to go on living generation after generation, seeking justice and saying it's going to come, but not knowing when, and probably at some point quivering a little bit over the hope that you lay on knowing that that justice is going to come. I know because my family's been through it as well. There are many disparate communities right here in San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles County that have experienced this in their grandparents, great-grandparents' generations. But what Mary said was exactly what I was going to talk about. You never stop, you never concede, you never give up, and you continue to push forward, even when you don't think something's going to happen. I have a bill right now that my co-author is sitting right here in front of me as well, Senator Scott Wilk, that will divest investments made in Turkish bonds by the state of California pension programs, both in CalPERS and CalSTRS. We got it out of the Assembly, it's on the Senate side, and I made it into a 2-year bill so that we can continue educating on the issue and not just have a few different organizations that are of Armenian backing or Greek or Assyrian backing, putting in support letters, but have many Assyrian teachers, Armenian teachers, Greek teachers who are part of CalSTRS to push CalSTRS themselves and say, I don't want my pension dollars being invested in Turkey. That's the way to push things. It's not just the elected officials. You have to do your part as well. It doesn't stop with just me, or Paul Gregorian, or Senator Wilk. It continues with you. So, again, Mary, thank you for what you said, because I think that speaks very loudly. I'm honored to be here with you, and I will always stand with you, but please also join me. Don't just look. Politics and governance is not a spectator sport. It's an engagement sport. Be engaged and work with me. Thank you.
Now I'd like to ask State Senator Scott Wilk to come to the stage. Just a brief background, represents the 21st District of this great state of California, which includes Antelope, Santa Clarita, and Victor Valley.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I voted no on the gas tax, but I would have voted yes to watch you dance. Adrina, I think the last time you danced was at your wedding, so it's been a while. Anyway, again, it's my pleasure to be here tonight. I want to thank my friend Peter Warda for inviting me. And I may not look... Yeah, give Peter, yeah. His mom and his family's there, so you already know that. So you're looking at me and you're looking, okay, why is this white guy here? Well, I am a white guy, but I'm also one of the founding members of the Armenian Legislative Caucus. Yeah, thank you, Nora. And the story with that is, 4 years ago, we were on a delegation tour of Armenia. Assemblymember Nazarian was there, Councilman Krikorian, and others. And I was standing with the Speaker of the State Assembly at the time, John Perez. And I said, and my wife, by the way, her name is Vanush Safoyan, so there's the connection. I'm a Pesa, I'm his son-in-law. So anyway, I talked to the speaker and I said, I really felt moved to start a caucus. And he said, well, we have a problem because under the rules of the House, it takes 3. And I see Nazarian, I see Achajian, your name ain't Wilkian. However, there was an Armenian priest there, Dead Hide, so I went to the Dead Hide. What do I need to do to become Armenian? And he said, get christened in the Armenian Apostolic Church. So I came back to America, went down to Rancho Mirage to my mother-in-law's church, and got christened in the Armenian Apostolic Church. So you may call me Senator Scott Wilkian. And I really love your theme tonight because we need to do both. You know, we have to remember those who have passed, and I've got stories I could share from my wife's family. And one of the most moving times in my life was 2 years ago, standing and walking with 130,000 people in acknowledgement of the 100th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. And the pain was palpable in the air. And we can't allow this to happen ever again to anybody. So we need to do that, but we also need to, press on and be empowered by our future. So I am working on the principal co-author of the divestment bill. Would love to have you join the fight for that. It will not be easy, but we can do it. Another thing I'd love to do with the community is, I don't recall in my 5 years in the state legislature having your own resolution acknowledging what happened and talking about the things that are happening today, because we have things happening today in the Middle East. So I'd love to partner with the American Assyrian Association to do that, and I will work with you guys after that. But again, I thank you for coming out. It's about community first, working together. We will get this acknowledged by Turkey, and we will make sure that this never happens to another people group ever again. Thank you for your time.
So now we're going to queue up 2 video messages for 2 members of Congress who regrettably could not be here, but I want to give an introduction to both before we cue the videos up, so hold up on the video. So Representative Adam Schiff, or Congressman Adam Schiff, represents California's 28th Congressional District, and throughout his tenure in Congress is focused on growing the economy, bolstering national security, strengthening our communities, helping small businesses, and improving education, safety, and healthcare for our children. In his 9th term in the House of Representatives, Schiff currently serves as the ranking member or top Democrat of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and as a member of the Benghazi Select Committee. We also have a video message from Congressman Brad Sherman, who I've had the pleasure of also chatting a lot about politics with. Congressman Brad Sherman from Sherman Oaks was born and raised in Southern California. He is a senior member of the Housing Foreign Affairs Committee and serves as the ranking Democrat on the Subcommittee on Asia and the second ranking Democrat on the Subcommittee on Europe and Eurasia. We can cue the videos up, please.
Good evening, I'm Congressman Adam Schiff, and I'm sorry I'm not able to join you at this year's Remember the Fallen, Empower the Future Memorial event. But I am there in spirit as you gather on this solemn occasion to commemorate Assyrian Martyrs' Day. Today we honor the countless lives lost during the genocide of over a century ago, the 1933 massacre in Simele, and the present-day victims in Syria and Iraq. As we commemorate the 102nd anniversary of the genocide against the Assyrians, we remember the hundreds of thousands of Assyrian men, women, and children who were brutally murdered by the Ottoman Empire during a campaign of death and destruction. We stand together to honor all who were lost during this tragedy and focus our efforts to fight for global recognition of the genocide and to ensure that this dark chapter in human history is never forgotten. It is therefore all the more pressing that Congress recognize the historic facts of past genocides and stand against modern-day genocide and crimes against humanity. I'm proud to join with Representative David Trott and a number of my colleagues earlier this year to introduce H.R. 220. This bipartisan resolution calls upon the United States to draw upon pertinent lessons of the U.S. government and humanitarian response to SAFO, the Armenian genocide, and the wide-ranging genocidal campaign perpetrated by the Ottoman Empire against Assyrians, Armenians, Greeks, and other Christians in seeking to prevent genocide and war crimes against vulnerable ethnic and religious groups across the Middle East. I want to take this opportunity to commend the founders, board of directors, and members of SAFO Center for your tireless efforts to bring awareness to the Assyrian genocide. I'd also like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the officers, board of directors, and members of the Assyrian American Association of Southern California. From serving the Assyrian American community to continuing your fight for the Assyrian genocide's worldwide recognition, your efforts are admirable and nothing short of extraordinary. Thank you, and I hope to see you all very soon.
Hello, I'm Congressman Brad Sherman from America's best named city, Sherman Oaks. I've been a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee for 20 years. I stand with you in commemorating Assyrian Martyrs' Day, which commemorates the day the Iraqi army entered Simoleon and its surrounding areas in 1933, massacring thousands of men, women, and children. Today we also remember the 102nd anniversary of the systematic Ottoman genocide against Assyrians, Armenians, and Greek communities within its territory that began in 1915. During the Ottoman genocide against the Assyrian community, known as the SAFO, they killed 250,000 Assyrians. In the same time period, the Ottoman Empire also murdered an estimated 1.5 million Armenians and hundreds of thousands of Christian Greeks during the Pontian genocide and at Smyrna and elsewhere. To ensure that we properly commemorate and recognize the genocides against the Assyrian, Armenian, and Greek communities, I have co-sponsored House Resolution 220, which expresses the House of Representatives' view that we should recognize these past genocides in an effort to prevent future genocides and war crimes against Christians, Yazidis, and other vulnerable communities in the Middle East. I also co-sponsored House Concurrent Resolution 75, which has passed the House of Representatives, expressing the sense of Congress that the atrocities perpetrated by ISIS against religious and ethnic minorities in Iraq and Syria, including Assyrians, Armenians, and Yazidis, amount to crimes against humanity and amount to genocide. We cannot remain idle in the face of evil. Assyrian Christians have been among the most persecuted groups by ISIS. The Assyrian community has fought back, and Assyrians have proven to be capable fighters against the evils of ISIS. Assyrian forces now patrol liberated Assyrian towns that were recently taken back from that terrorist organization. I'd like to thank the SAFO Center and the Assyrian American Association of Southern California for their efforts to keep memories alive of those who perished during the Simoleon massacre and the Ottoman Empire's genocides in general. And I thank you for the opportunity to remember once again the genocide committed by the Ottoman Empire against its own Armenian, Assyrian, and Greek communities. I'm Congressman Brad Sherman.
Well, Congressman Sherman and Representative Schiff could not be here with us. We do have a number of their staffers here with us, so I did want to acknowledge them, and if they could just raise their hands up. Mary Hovagimian, who's with Representative Schiff's office, and Congressman Brad Sherman's staffers, Scott Abrams and Mary Chacario, who can just kind of. So moving through, we have a few, just three more speeches, and I just want to give a round of applause to the people in the back. Those of you that were fortunate to get seats up front haven't seen that for the last 2 hours we've had standing room only. So I thank you for your patience. So it is my distinct pleasure to bring on to the stage Councilmember Krikorian, Paul Krikorian. As Mayor Garcetti mentioned, Councilmember Krikorian was the first Armenian American who was elected to public office in the city of Los Angeles, where his leadership as chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee has helped guide the city through the Great Recession and toward greater economic promise. With that,
good evening, Reverend clergy, colleagues in public service, honored guests, brothers and sisters. It's a great honor for me to be with you again this year, and it is inspiring to see so many people here, gathered here, to remember the past and to work towards empowering the future. So thank you, one and all, for being here and making this night so important to each and every one of us, especially those of you who are standing in the back. Thank you very much. I stand before you tonight, yes, as the first Armenian American elected in the history of our city. I stand before you as your representative, the representative of this center in the City Council. But I also stand before you as the great-grandnephew of Professor Khachadur Nahigian. Professor Nahigian was a gentle man of letters who taught at Euphrates College in the Ottoman Empire in Harpert. And Professor Nahigian had the opportunity to come to America and get educated, and he decided to go back to Harpert to be able to teach the next generation as well and to give them the opportunities to learn and improve themselves. And little did he know that the constitutional changes that were happening in the Ottoman Empire that held out so much promise for ethnic minorities would turn out to be the beginning of the horrible consequences that we would see. And Professor Nahigian, in June of 1915, like so many others in Harpert, was murdered in the Armenian genocide. But I stand before you too as the descendant of people who for millennia were neighbors of Assyrians, people who shared the same villages, the same Christian tradition, the same demand for fair and equal treatment in the Ottoman Empire. We truly were brothers and sisters for millennia. We were neighbors for thousands of years. Sometimes not such good neighbors, but we got over that. Like in any good relationship, you move on from the difficult times, and we have. And we've shared so many common experiences. These two ancient peoples have contributed to cultures on every continent in the globe. By being among the oldest peoples in the Fertile Crescent and on the Silk Road, our cultural contributions added to the richness of the world long before Rome was built, long before Julius Caesar was born. Assyrian and Armenian people were contributing to the rich fabric of world culture. So we shared that. We shared the Christian tradition that was given to both of us by the Apostle Bartholomew, who received it directly from Jesus himself and then gave it to the Assyrian people and gave this rich spiritual tradition and faith to the Armenian people as well. And we know that it's been that faith that has more than anything kept our nations continuous and together throughout the last 2,000 years, even in the face of oppression, even in the face of violence, even in the face of being scattered around the globe. So we share that as well. But we also share some darker periods of our past too. Of course, we stood together as neighbors in our villages, and sadly we were slaughtered together as neighbors by the Ottoman Turks as well. Since the genocide, we have stood in loud voice demanding justice for the crimes that were committed against our martyrs. And for many generations now, those cries for justice have seemed to fall on deaf ears by people throughout the world, including the leaders of our own nation in Washington. And we've shared that urgency of demanding justice and demanding recognition. And we've stood together. We've stood together even in Washington, D.C., protesting together when Erdogan's thugs beat us down in our own nation's capital, beat Armenians, beat Greeks, beat Assyrians, beat Kurds, who had the courage to stand up and protest and demand our rights. We stood together then as well. And we've been united, sadly, in our grief as we see what happens today in the world. When we see Assyrian cultural treasures, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000-year-old treasures being dynamited, being destroyed again and again by these extremists who are corrupting everything about our historical lands. We share that too as we see the desecration of Armenian churches in those same lands, Armenian cemeteries that are bulldozed, Armenian gravestones that are being used as paving stones. We share that with the Assyrian people as well. We mourn and we grieve and we demand justice for that as well. But let me tell you, my friends, we share something else as well, and I want to touch on Assemblymember Nazarian's point about politics not being a spectator sport. Because when 160,000 people took to the streets of Los Angeles and we demanded action from our own government, we demanded justice, we saw this flag flying next to the Armenian Yerequina. It's flying next to this flag as well, the flag of our nation as American citizens. We shared that moment together as well. And we know that it's important to remember the victims and to empower the future, but I would tell you this as well. By remembering the future, we empower the victims. By building the future of this community, we empower those who fell, and they will be victims no more. The martyrs of the genocide, the martyrs of the massacres will not be victims so long as we see the scouts that we saw this morning coming out here and reciting the pledges of allegiance to their two nations, in their two languages, in English to this flag and in their ancient Aramaic to this flag. As long as we see that, the martyrs will not be victims. They will be our foundation. They will be our inspiration. They will lift us up, and they will continue to make sure that the Assyrian people and the Armenian people and the Greek people and all those who stand with us in demanding justice will continue to flourish. So, the future does not happen by itself. We build it. So let's get to work on building that kind of future, a future that recognizes our past, recognizes our need for justice, and makes sure that our young people will never forget their traditions, their faith, and their history. Thank you very much.
So regrettably, LA County Supervisor Catherine Barger could not be with us today, but I want to do a brief introduction before I ask her staffer Nicole Vartanian to come up on the stage. So Supervisor Barger proudly represents the residents of LA County's 5th Supervisorial District, the county's largest, spanning 2,800 square miles, including 22 cities, 70 unincorporated communities in San Gabriel, San Fernando, Crescenta, Santa Clarita, and the Antelope Valleys. If I could ask Nicole Vartanian to please come up on stage. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here as Field Deputy for Supervisor Catherine Barger. Supervisor Barger would like to thank the Assyrian American Association for inviting her here tonight and is very sorry she was not able to be here at the last minute. It's an honor to join you here for this solemn occasion as we commemorate Assyrian Memorial Day by remembering the deaths of hundreds of thousands during the Assyrian genocide by the Ottoman Empire in 1915 and the Sameli massacre in 1933 in Iraq. Today, the Assyrian people living in their homeland continue to be victims of persecution and violence at the hands of Islamic fundamentalist terrorist groups. While the largest Assyrian community still is in their homeland in the Middle East, the Assyrian diaspora has made a home here in the United States. Your contributions to our country, our state, our nation have enriched our culture and our economy through leadership in business, academia, medicine, government, and in the arts. Tomorrow, Supervisor Catherine Barger will be joined by leaders of the Assyrian community for a formal presentation commemorating Assyrian Memorial Day at the Board of Supervisors meeting. We ask you to join us tomorrow at the Hall of Administration to join your leaders in recognizing and commemorating this day. It is Supervisor Barger's hope that memorial events and honorary ceremonies of remembrance like these will help ease the continuing pain from loss of family and friends during past tragedies, and continue to inspire you to share your cultural heritage and your history, traditions with the future generations. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to ask Diana Bitsamo, who is the Vice President for the Assyrian Students Association in LA, to please come on stage.
Good evening, everyone. Today I'm going to be reciting a poem written by W. Gabriel Dinka titled The Assyrian Veteran. I used to see him every day, the old man by the tree. He wore a hat with a feather on top and often waved at me. His coat was old and tattered, but medals filled his chest. A veteran of some forgotten war who'd somehow done his best. I often wondered who he was and why he sat alone. Was he just a homeless soul with nowhere to call home? One day I stopped and said hello, and much to my surprise, on his coat an Assyrian flag that could not be disguised. I stood and stared in wonder. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to know who this man was with my flag upon his sleeve. I said, "Were you a soldier?" He said, "One of the best." I saw his bosom swell with pride and grow inside his chest. He started to tell me stories, each chapter from his life, the battles he had fought in, the troubles and the strife. I listened to him intently. His eyes were so sincere. He said, "My dear, now heed my words." His voice was stern and clear. We tried to give you freedom with blood and sweat and tears. We sacrificed so many men to calm our nation's fears. Courageous men is what we were. On horseback we would fight. We kept the enemy at arm's length so you could sleep at night. We fought for our identity. Our faith back then was strong. We fought the Turks, we fought the Kurds to show that we belong. We fought to preserve your land of birth, a place to call from home, your own. But now you go from door to door because you don't have a home. We guarded you with honor. We were heroes, young and brave. Now see yourself what you've become. You're nothing but a slave. A slave to those who slaughtered you. You did not know your worth. You're disappearing one by one. Your name will leave this earth. We spilled our blood on sacred soil. The world knew our intent. You went and sold the title deed, so now you're forced to rent. Your house is gone and won't return. Too late to sit and weep. The enemy was plotting against you while you were sound asleep. You have no land to build again, and that's the greatest shame. Your passport will now state homeless in place of country's name. I saw his eyes fill up with tears. He could not speak no more. All of his memories came flooding back of what he'd seen at war. I sat and thought about his words. They hit me like a train. Everything the old man said, now embedded in my brain. He then picked up his walking stick and said, "My dear, goodbye." He placed a kiss upon my head as a tear fell from his eye. As I stood to make my way back home, I saw the old man's hat. He had left it by the willow tree where every day he sat. I saw him cross the busy road and enter a house of blue. I tried to get his attention, but he had disappeared from view. I went and knocked upon his door. A lady came outside. I said, "Your father forgot his hat." She took it and she cried. She placed the hat upon her chest and said, "This cannot be. This is indeed my father's hat, but he died in 1933.
Before I ask the president of the Assyrian Association to come up stage, I wanted to just set what's going to happen in the next few minutes so that we can have some order and semblance as we walk into the hall. You will all note that there are candles underneath your chairs. There should be. If you don't, we will make sure that you get one. The first song that the saxophonist will play will all be lighting that candle, and that will be lit when we're ready to light it. The second song will all ask folks to grab a flower, a carnation, to be laid at the monument that you see to my left and your right. So with that, Raymond and Besmelo, come to the stage.
Shalom Aleichem. Good evening. Before I do my speech at I timed it at about 22 minutes, so I'm just kidding. I did want to give a special thank you to Christina Al-Suri for being a fantastic master ceremony this evening. She came all the way from Sacramento. Thank you so much, Christina. I wanted to thank our esteemed guests, elected officials, for all coming. It truly means a lot on behalf of the Assyrian community that you're here with us. I'd like to thank our brothers and sisters of the Armenian National Committee of America, Western Region, for coming, and the American Hellenic Council, all esteemed guests, our wonderful clergy, Assyrian community leaders, and just as important, all of you this evening to commemorate this day. Honorable guests, esteemed clergy, fellow community leaders, and everyone here. We've gathered here again on August 7th to pay tribute to those before us who gave the ultimate sacrifice for their nation. As has been talked about, this day was designated in honor of the massacres of 1933 in Samed in northern Iraq by the Iraqi government that resulted in the deaths of 4,000 to 6,000 Assyrians. However, this day has come to recognize and honor all Assyrians who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, the 2/3 of our nation killed in the genocide of World War I, which also took the lives of over 1.5 million Armenians and hundreds of thousands of Greeks. Assyrian martyrs at the hands of ruthless Ba'athification, and unfortunately still today with those in Iraq and Syria victimized by the ethnic cleansing committed by a new yet all too familiar evil. Now this is our Memorial Day, where we honor and remember the fallen. And as important as August 7th is to our community, there is another date that I think is just as important. Whether it's April 24th or September 14th, which is a Greek day of remembrance, I think I can speak on behalf of my Armenian colleagues, my Greek colleagues, when I can say that a date that's just as important is August 8th and April 25th and September 15th. The next day, tomorrow. This isn't just a one-day-a-year fight where we just come here, pay our respects, and go home. This is a 365-day-a-year struggle. It's every day. It's a fight for justice and recognition, waving our flags proudly, observing and working to maintain our rich cultures, resisting the architects of denial, and so on. It's something we can do each day in our daily lives, from educating a friend of yours to becoming proactive in community engagement. Don't think that this work is just up to community organizations or public servants or community leaders. That, my friends, will breed complacency and self-entitlement. It is up to each of us, each and everyone here, and all your friends and everyone. All hands are on deck, not just today, but tomorrow and every day thereafter. Now, over my left shoulder, you will see a quote on the bottom of this banner. You may be asking yourself why it is there. It's a quote by the famous American author, William Faulkner, which I first heard by Congressman Adam Schiff, who was very gracious in sending the message that we all saw. And he said that line when we attended at the March for Justice on April 24th of this year. It really did resonate with me, particularly since it reminds me of a comment that some people make. Some say, well, Semele was 85 years ago. The genocide was over 100 years ago. All those genocides in the past centuries. Yes, they were horrible, but they were so long ago. What's the point now? There's other issues happening today we must focus on now. But you see, they are not mutually exclusive, ladies and gentlemen. To suggest we must prioritize current events over what has happened before is a false choice. Why? Because the past is not even past. They may have different names, they may look a different way, and the time period may be different, but what's happened before keeps recurring again. So don't tell me that the past is past. After all, if an Assyrian family in Iran, Iraq, or Syria could be Assyrians freely and practice whatever faith they had without worry or hesitation, then the past would not be past. The past would be past. If our people across the world could sleep at night knowing that the ancient relics of Assyrian antiquity, the cornerstone of our ancient history, would be preserved and protected in Iraq and Syria instead of being bulldozed to the ground, then the past would be past. If the Assyrian population in southeastern Turkey could attend their churches that were built over a millennia ago and not worry that they'll be confiscated and taken by the Turkish government, then the past would be past. If a group of people in Washington, D.C. would exercise their inalienable right of peaceful assembly, could practice that without having to worry about getting their faces kicked in by Turkish government thugs, then the past would be past. If a little girl named Christina could freely and safely do what any 3-year-old girl would do, play with toys, play with dolls, play with her friends, in her hometown of Karakosh, without her family having to worry that she'd be kidnapped and abducted by ISIS, then the past would be past. If men like Hubert, Yosef, and Yuchanna did not have to give up their lives because they refused to compromise their political convictions about their Assyrian nation, then the past would be past. And lastly, if 2 duly elected mayors in Assyrian towns like Elkush and Telkep could freely and without any obstacles serve the communities and not worry that they'll be replaced by KRG attempt to annex their land, and the past would be past. So don't tell me that the past is dead. It's not even past, it's happening today. It's recurring. So what does this mean? What does this mean, ladies and gentlemen? What do we do? It means fighting and resisting against ignorance and oppression. It all starts at home. Get to know your history. Be proud of who you are as an Assyrian. Make sure your friends and who you meet each and every day know about it. And if one person knows about it because of you, then you've done your job. Spreading awareness creates a sense of empowerment. It means that at an institutional level, we must invest in advocacy and academic research of the Assyrian genocide and advocate for recognition at the local, municipal, and state levels. And the federal levels. And it's through education that we will prevail in the fight for justice and recognition. Because in the words of Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, you are entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. It also means standing in solidarity and expanding on cross-community partnerships with our Armenian brothers and sisters, our Greek brothers and sisters, our Yazidi brothers and sisters, and all those that have fallen victim to oppression. Because after all, the cloud of persecution has never exclusively hovered over the Assyrian community. And so when we stand collectively with other communities, our collective voice will only get louder and louder. And finally, it means one more thing. There was a movie this year that came out, which a lot of you saw. One of the associate producers of the film, her name is Carla Garabin, is here with us this evening. One of the principal lines is when Anna tells Mikhail, "Our revenge will be to survive." Now, as descendants of those brave souls who went through unimaginable pain and suffering, yet had the conviction, fortitude, and will to survive, we in diaspora must build on that revenge, and to say our revenge is not just to survive, but to collectively thrive. That we must work together and progress forward as the strong, vibrant communities that we are and can continue to be. We owe it to them, we owe it to ourselves. We have come far, but there's still so much left to do. Your work does not start and end on August 7th. It only continues tomorrow. Allah barakum shula sadum so shula motane. God bless all of you. Thank you very much.
Rasmale Wanya Benyamin and Papadal stage. So Mr. Benjamin's going to be playing 2 songs. As I mentioned, the first song is dedicated. It's the name of the song is Yanesho Trume. And it's written by Freydun Aturay, a very, very key, critical figure in our history. But as we were talking about, how do you describe the song to non-Assyrians? Because it's something that most of the songs, all 3 of the songs that he's played today, we all kind of grew up with as Assyrian kids. It was, like I said, Baba Bishmaya, the Lord's Prayer, and all of the nationalistic Assyrian songs and allegiances. This song really depicts, and Rabbi Robert Baba, he kind of enlightened me today. this song really embodies the place where Assyrians, when they had no place, we haven't had our homeland for more than 2,000 years, but this was the place. This song embodied the place where Assyrians can go and they can have their own establishment, their own governance, their own, at least in this utopia of your mind. That's when your land's been taken away. Where can you create the place where you can arrange? And that's what this song embodies. For this song, I'd ask everybody, I think we all have the candles lit as fast as we can. He'll play that song first, and the second song is Ya Akhuni Atu Beda, Oh Brother, My Flag. That's a seminal patriotic anthem, and it's uplifting, and it was written by David Isha in the mid-1970s. To that second song, and we'll ask him to stop and take a moment while he adjusts the saxophone, and we'll ask folks to grab a carnation and pay their respects at the monument that you see to my left and make their way into the entrance of the hall.